What's up, YouTube? Hope everything is well. Today I have an amazing guest, and I think you guys will enjoy this podcast quite a lot. It's a pleasure to have you with me, Brad, as known on Instagram as Low Vintage Soccer Card, a page that I actually follow and tend to enjoy quite a lot. You always share stuff that I think is honestly very cool to see, to learn about. Maybe a lot of my viewers are not aware of you, but I think right now, if you can share a couple of words, will be important. Like I said, I think everyone should check out your page. I think it's important to grow different parts of the hobby. And this conversation, to be fair, will be very focused on vintage and pre-war. And your page is basically about that. So, Brad, share a couple of words with my viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. It's definitely good to to spread a little bit more about the pre-war vintage market. A lot of it's really untapped in kind of a wild west type of atmosphere. How I actually got into it was I was part of the Prism boom. I literally bought Prism cards at the high. I bought the Cristiano Ronaldo PSA 8 for $375. I was getting burned left and right. And I took a pause and I decided, I wasn't as familiar with the sport as a lot of people, which is why I was getting burned. So I decided that it was smart for me to start from the history and move forward and really learn the sport. I could have easily have given up and been like, you know what, screw this, like I'm losing all this money. But I decided to go the opposite direction and just genuinely learn the sport and learn where the history and everything about it, and that really drew me to collect football, to Bill. And I was one of the first people on the Discord that they have over there. There was like 25 of us at the time, and I just engulfed myself in the history of the sport. And I'm still learning, so if I butcher names or mix people up, I'm really sorry. I'm still watching as much as I can on TV and learning as much as I can. So, we're all learning here. So
But just one thing, since you mentioned, I will actually leave a link to the Vintage Discord, since I think a lot of things you talk about, I have my own Discord, but I think that Discord is actually a better place to learn about that. So apart from my viewers checking you out on Instagram, I also think checking the Discord, which is run by Bill. I'm not sure if Al is involved or not, but is an amazing place to learn about vintage. And let me be honest with you, I think your story is great, to be fair, because like you said, you started with Prism, like a lot of people, to be fair, but instead of giving up or even continuing going into a potentially wrong direction, you end up becoming almost an expert in an area of the market. And I think I admire that. So yeah. So basically, the way this works, and I guess you are aware, is I have 5 questions for you. You end up actually bringing 5 questions for me, and we go back and forth. At the beginning, basically, we give the quick thoughts, then we have a longer conversation about those questions later, basically. So can I start with this, Brad?
Absolutely.
Okay. First question, and a very easy one for you, probably, or not. Favorite pre-war players to collect?
My favorite pre-war players to collect would be Silvio Piola, the Italian striker, and Max Wuznum, who is probably someone you've never heard of. A lot of people have never heard of. He's known as one of the greatest British sportsmen of all time, and I feel he doesn't get the love from his talents that he deserves. So I would say those are my 2.
Can you repeat the name of the last one, because I'm not aware, to be fair with you?
Yeah, Max Wuznum. Wuznum, Wosnam.
I will try. I assume you have cards from him, so I will try to, on the video when I edit this, to put a card of him for people that may want to check him out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, shoot me your first question.
My first question is kind of more general for you, but it's important. With the World Cup approaching, and a lot of people genuinely starting to look at the soccer card market, what would be your advice to the new collectors that are jumping in right now?
That's a great question, but I don't have a great answer, in the sense that I almost don't remember what is getting started into the card market. Since my transition was more from TCGs, so I already had some fundamentals. I always knew that vintage was probably one of the best areas in the market. But I would say one thing. When you start, look, the reality is probably you have no great idea of what's going on, so you will make not the best decisions. And collecting could be that, to be fair. Collect what you like. If you like Prism, if you like Chrome, I will not be the person saying that don't do that. But I think your example is actually quite good. So with more education, with knowledge, you end up finding a path that you probably enjoy much more. And even if we go to the route of investing, it's probably much safer. It makes much more sense. When people start, it's difficult to find a line between being a flipper and an investor. When I say investor, it's also collector, because a lot of investors are also collectors. Not all the time, but I feel most of the time. So if you are a value investor with long run perspective, basically, don't feel uncomfortable if you have to overpay for an item you like a lot. If you are a flipper, you have to think the opposite. You cannot overpay. You need to find the items that you feel that you can flip basically very quick. So again, a lot of research, to be fair. Listen to people that honestly know what they are talking about. Interact with collectors like you on Instagram, on Discord, Facebook groups, etc. So that will be my general advice. So the question number one I have for you, the question was top three pre-war sets, but I will open a little bit more. And if you can give me your top three pre-war sets and top vintage sets, because like I said, this is more about pre-war, but I also know you love vintage, and vintage is pre-war. So.
No, I get it. Some people, would assume that pre-war is the same as vintage, but obviously it's much earlier era. So, I mean, in general, do you want me to show the cards now too, or no? Because I do that.
No, feel free, honestly.
Okay. My top three sets are a little different. I can start off by showing one that everybody knows and loves, and I feel like it's been one of the most common pre-war sets, but it is also one of the most important. At first, I kind of wrote it off when I first started it because I didn't really know what to think of it. But the collectability behind it, the idea behind it, obviously, is the 1938 Koenig set. It's one that people love because there's so many different back variations. The cards are beautiful. Yeah, this is the Jose Nassasi.
Yeah, Uruguayan player. I love that set. Andrade.
And
beautiful.
This is the No Princess Ramona back.
I'm actually trying to buy one. I'm actually trying to buy this Koenig in particular.
The Nassasi?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a Sarosi.
Another great one. Legendary Uruguayan player.
Your boy Pyrotea.
Hungary. Pyrotea, yeah. Portuguese.
Solo back.
Honestly, and I guess we could save this to the longer conversation, but I think Pyrotea is incredible, undervalued, even in general in the hobby. I mean, if you look at his stats, they are absolutely insane. For me, he's top 3, top 4 Portuguese player ever, and I think in pre-war he probably is top 10. I'm putting probably a hot take out there, but I think Pyrotea is really, really undervalued for his numbers.
I feel like too that there's not a lot of cards of him. So, the Koenig is probably the card for him and the most accessible card.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Portuguese issues. I've seen a few pop up, but he's one that it's very difficult to find a lot of him that I've found from, like at least that I've seen. Maybe I haven't looked into him as much, but I think that
is really difficult.
A must have. I know that you have one, and that was one of your anytime you buy a pre-war card, I'm like, oh, okay. Getting deeper and deeper.
It was my first Koenig. I got a nice deal by other YouTuber. I guess you know him. Oh man, this is not good. I forgot the name of his channel.
Vince Cardauer? Did you get it from
Cardauer? I knew the name Vince, but Cardauer.
So,
yeah. So yeah. Yeah, but you showed me one set. Show me more.
Yeah, I mean, I literally have, and I mean, I have a couple graded Koenigs too. Like I got these from Al, but there's
That's
just
great.
so much collectability from so many different countries that I think it's just an important set because you don't have many pre-war sets. You have UK sets that are just strictly UK players. You have Portuguese sets, but to have a set with so many variations with the gold borders that are just beautiful and the idea of these being just I really do believe in the future of the set long term. I believe that it's just they're beautiful cards and they're all legends. So how can you go wrong with it, in my opinion? So
Is my favorite pre-war set. To be fair, I'm not an expert. I'm starting in pre-war in soccer in particular, but I love the set. I mean, you have so many legends: Dixie Dean, Piroteu,
yeah,
Sarossi, Zamora.
Sindelar is a big one too. That
Sindelar is probably the grail on the set. I would say so. Yeah, it's amazing set. Honestly, great choice.
yeah,
If I had to make my top, that will also be there.
Yeah, between the big three, in my opinion, from this set are the Dixie Dean, which is actually the rarest because a lot of the people in the UK all have them and they're all hoarding them because they're all big Dixie Dean collectors. So, you have
That's
all the
great
Everton
info.
collectors that don't want to let them go. So the Dixie Dean might be the hardest to find at this point, unless you can, find. I mean, I mean finding it raw because you can, go on PWCC and find a lot of them that way. But the Sindelar, the Dixie Dean, and the Nassasi are like the big three from that set. Everything else is kind of still pretty affordable and pretty accessible.
For sure.
But yeah, those are like the big three, and everyone's chasing them pretty hard. So, but yeah, as far as other sets, now I'm going to show you some stuff that you might not be familiar with or might not have heard of.
That will be great.
Yeah. This set I actually just got recently. It's a Spanish set from the early 1920s. It's the Chocolates Orti set.
No, but I'm aware of this set with Zamora and Alcantara. That's a beautiful set. Yeah.
So these cards are actually the lithographic cards. So every single one is different. So I always joke about it and say that these are like original one of ones.
One of ones, yeah.
Because no, they're all the same, but they're all different. And the coloring on them, the borders, and
come on, look how beautiful that is honestly pre-war Spanish pre-war releases are quite beautiful. I look into Zamora cards, Alcantara, Smithia, players like the best to be fair from the Spanish era, and those cards are just I mean, they are amazing, honestly. One question that I have for you: do you know if these cards actually get slabbed into a normal holder, or is the big one?
So I mean the holder size. So
yes.
They PSA actually grades most of these Spanish cards now, and they all put them in obviously the bigger slabs. But you can sometimes maybe write a note to SGC and put like a note with them and be like, put this in a normal size slab, and I've seen it happen. But it's all kind of a dice roll.
I'll have a lot of those releases in but to be fair, was old SGC that I thought at the time they cared a little bit more about the soccer card market than they care right now. So maybe there was more, but I would love to see those cards in a normal holder. To be fair,
maybe now that they have more time, maybe that they can take those requests a little more seriously.
So. There is no backlog, so they need to refocus again.
Right. And I'd say the third set is kind of a mixture here. So one of the big areas that I've been focusing on in 2022 are pre-war Italian cards. I've been basically trying to build and focus on the 1934 and 1938 World Cup teams. I just feel like nobody's paying any attention to them. So all I've done for the last, 6 months is just I've gone on eBay with a shotgun approach, and I probably bought 400 cards off of eBay Italy and just taken everything off that website. So a bunch of these sets, I'm sure one that a lot of people have heard of because of a recent sale is the Lorati. It's the 1927, 1928 Lorati.
Because
this is Julio Libonati, a Torino player from the 1920s.
That stuff is at least my perception is quite rare.
Yeah, this is Enrico Colombari, another guy. A lot of these guys played in the Olympics in the 1928. They're not like the next tier of like Giuseppe Miyaza and them, but they're all really great players. And I mean, this is a goalie who played for 15 years until Giampiero Combi came around. His name's Giovanni Dipra, and he's a guy I've really been. And that's a Lorati card that, I mean, a lot of these are beat up, and I don't really care because I think they're just fun to collect. And here's one that's actually really beat up, and then I'll show you what it looks like. This is Adolfo Balencieri, who actually was known as the same level of talent as Giuseppe Miyaza and Valentino Mazzola, but nobody really knows about him because all the records got broken. So so then he got kind of left in the dust, at least in the hobby. But yeah, his cards are actually very rare.
But just for people that may not know, that set there is a Miyaza. I would say people consider that a rookie that sold recently in SEC 2, I believe 40K. Am I correct on that?
Well, two of them sold. The SGC 2, I think, sold for 60.
60K. So, okay, yeah. Correct.
There was an SGC 1 that sold, and now actually we just found out that PSA will grade the Lorati set. Okay. So for an Italian collector like me to see this progress at PSA of them putting in more effort to like want to grade sets, yeah, because for a while I couldn't find, and that's why I think a lot of these Italian cards were so cheap, was because nobody was grading them. I sent in a Giuseppe Miyaza rookie to SGC, and they sent it back to me and wouldn't grade it. And I emailed them asking why, and they just said, well, our grading team won't accept it. And they wouldn't give me a reason. And now all these sales, and I'm like, now will you accept it? Like, I don't know what to say to that, but
yeah, I mean, but even with pre-modern cards that they never graded, they are also rejecting. So I'm not surprised, because for some reason they don't want to grade anything new.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of these cards, I mean, I bought these with the idea in my head, knowing that they won't be slabbed, they won't be graded. But I'm okay with that. I have them in a box. I have them all alphabetized and put together in the year for the World Cups, and for, Olympic winners, because, well, most of these guys won the bronze in 1928. But this is the Adolfo Bellanciaries that I have here. Now, one thing about these, a lot of the Italian cards all have different backs, just like other ones. This is Mira and Longhi.
Okay.
And then there's also a rare version of a back too. This is Malugani.
All right.
So a lot of these older Italian cards have very rare backs too. There's also Zalante, Zani, Sia. There's so many different, Cioccolato companies that put these cards out that stamp the back of them, that have their own issues. But they're all, I mean, most of them are like this one right here. This one's pretty beat. This is Umberto Caligaris. He was a World Cup winner, but I mean, they're all pretty beat up, but I mean, I don't know. I love them personally. They have love from so many years, and
I can feel that from you. And honestly, I think that collecting is honestly about that, and that stuff is quite rare. So you are probably getting into an early market that I think, again, no financial advice, but can have a lot of potential long run. So we end up going a little bit longer on this question, but I think was totally worth it. I guess it's your turn to ask me a question.
Let me pull it up here. I noticed you slowly moving further back within the vintage after obviously purchasing the Pyroteo Koenig. What other pre-war sets have you looked at, or just in general enjoy? Not saying you have to buy or anything.
Okay, so pre-war is definitely not my main market, but I would say it's one of the markets I want to explore the most in the future, because I honestly love old stuff. I love vintage, and of course pre-war also makes a lot of sense for me. I'm familiar with a lot of British UK releases, because even of other things that I collect, for example, I collect some chess players from pre-war, for example, Capablanca, which was a legendary chess player. So that player have sets in, I believe the name is Galler British Champion, something like that. So I was a little bit familiar. I also collect the early cards for Queen Elizabeth. So Queen Elizabeth have sets on Ardat, Carreras. So I'm more familiar with that side of the British market. Not an expert by any means. I probably know more than the regular person entering the market. But even if right now I'm not super focused on pre-war, I know that eventually I will start getting more and more. Because look, if I love soccer, I need to try to learn everything I can about the history of the sport. And for example, those players you showed me, yes, I know Piola, I know Miyaza, but a lot of the others I don't know. And I feel like in the future, like you have that knowledge, I also want to have that. So I probably will be asking you a couple of questions in the future, basically.
Absolutely.
So no, but again, I think pre-war is such an amazing market that I almost feel bad to not engage with pre-war a little bit earlier. But I was so focused on pre-modern and even vintage that but it is what it is at the end of the day. So my question number 3 for you is, what is and this is to be fair, I think this could be the most difficult question, but what is the best quality you see in the pre-war market? If people go to you and say, you know what, why I should move from modern, pre-modern, or vintage and focus on this, what will be the reason? And to be fair, all markets can be great, of course, but sell me pre-war, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of in a way sells itself because, people, if everyone's hunting now, pushing parallels and trying to find the rare stuff, well, if you find, a rare pre-war issue, maybe 5 to 10 of them are graded at most. You're not going to get artificial scarcity or artificial, rarity. You're going to get manufactured rarity. Sorry, that's what I mean. With a lot of this stuff, how many one of ones of these guys are out there, but you get like a Giuseppe Miyaza Lorati, there's maybe 10 to 20 of them in the world. And, a lot of these pre-war cards too are in very strong hands. You're dealing with a whole different type of person that has these pre-war cards. So if one comes to market, you have, 10, 15 guys here that have huge bankrolls that are chasing these because of the real rarity of these issues. So I think too, pre-war can definitely be more of a grind. So it's definitely a lot more of work because there's so many people trying to get it and you have to be the first one to be able to get it. And talking to people, networking, when you buy something from a seller, you have to grind it out, ask them what else they have for sale so it doesn't hit the market, so you get first dibs on it. It's like I've said earlier, it's kind of a wild west in a way. But the rewards of it can definitely be pretty high if you get something that's super rare. And I've seen it. I've been lucky myself, and it's definitely very rewarding. I think it's a little more rewarding because it's more of a hunt.
Yeah, again, the question is not for me, but I agree, and I would say it's true rarity, like Ben up saying also. So yeah. I think it's your turn. Send me your question number 3.
My question number 3 is pretty general, but do you feel the Discord groups, like the vintage soccer group, like your group, do you feel that those groups kind of create a fear of missing out or increase the hype on a lot of stuff that comes up within the groups?
Well, I think the short answer is yes. I mean, otherwise, I guess we will be lying. But I think my group and the Vintage Discord is probably the same, that in general, they are more good than bad, and there is a difference between pumping stuff, showing stuff off that basically have no fundamentals. People just talk because they have a lot to put in the market. I think modern sets could go into that direction. But if El Rey is talking about the pre-war set, normally it's because he loves that and he honestly wants to show that with you, with me, with other people on Discord. So I would say saying no will be also lying because, of course, I mean, actually, a great example will be every time you post a card on your Instagram. I'm not sure if you know him, but Seth not Seth, Seb, I believe is how he goes on Instagram. When he posts something, because he also collects a lot of pre-order, I find myself Googling stuff, going on eBay to see more or less what you guys are talking, if the entry point is still good for me. So look, you and other pre-order collectors, you create FOMO on me, fear of missing out. But I honestly don't think is a bad thing. FOMO in general, of course, can be very dangerous. But again, there is a big difference when people explain why they like this stuff, when people make sense why this stuff can actually be. And at the end of the day, I mean, we are all responsible by our own decisions at the end of the day. So short answer is yes, honestly, but I don't see that a bad thing. Can that become a bad thing in the future? I think it will depend if people with bad intentions start entering those type of discords, honestly. Otherwise, I think in general they are a great place. And I would say one thing actually, and I believe you agree with me on this. I think vintage, especially pre-war, can be a little bit more manipulated in the sense that there is nothing. So if you or I'll talk about one card a lot, if there is one on eBay, yeah, that can go into a weird spot, to be fair. Pre-modern is a little bit more relative. No matter how much I talk about Messi rookies, they will not disappear. Okay, maybe they increase a bit, but I don't think will be relevant, honestly. But with pre-war, with vintage, things with true rarity, to be fair, this could be a longer conversation, but in general, I feel okay with that. Hey guys, quick pause on the video. Hope you are enjoying this one. Amazing talk with Brad. Pre-war is a market that I'm not an expert, so I thought bringing a collector that is very engaged with that market would be great for all of us to learn. If you end up enjoying this video, or if you are enjoying, better saying, the video, don't forget to leave a like. It's super important. This is a good way to show support. Apart from that, a lot of viewers are not even subscribers. Also consider to check that. If you want to show support to the guest, to Brad, also check his Instagram. The link is below the video. Now to things, and I will be quite quick. Let's start with my Discord actually. So I run a Discord community that have more than 700 members. We are actually close to 800 members. I think it's an amazing place to learn and share. We focus more on pre-modern, but all areas of the market, there is a place there to talk. If you want to interact with me, I'm there a lot of times, so I think it's another good place to send me a DM, to chat with me, to share your questions, or even try to contact me to explain me something that I did wrong, whatever, basically. I think it's an amazing place, like I said, to learn and share. Another thing, and this is probably more important for the channel, to be fair, is that I run a Patreon community where I put a lot of content. I put content twice a week, one Q&A on Wednesday, and the extra audio that you can also call it podcast on Saturday. The Q&A, I guess, explains itself. I basically answer questions that you guys leave on the Patreon community, and the extra audio on Saturday is more a state of the market, things that I'm doing on the market, things that I'm seeing on the market. Is just a talk at the end of the day. So anyone joining the Patreon will be able to ask me questions. Already end up answering more than 300 questions, and there is more than 60 Q&As, and very close with the same amount of extra audio. So if you join the Patreon community today, it's crazy the amount of content you have to watch. I've been putting a lot of effort building a community there. So at one point I was doing much more content for YouTube than for Patreon. At this point, it's almost 50-50. Sometimes I even put more content on Patreon. Apart from that, and this is the key part, if you want to support what I'm doing on YouTube, supporting on Patreon with $10 helps a lot. So check both links. Both links will be below the video on the description. Let's continue with the conversation. So,
that's fair.
But we go back to this conversation later. So question number 4 for you, a fun. If I give you 20K, I'm not giving, by the way, but let's assume I'm giving you 20K. euros, not even dollars, what card are you buying? Or you could choose. You can.
I mean, what if I want dollars now over euros? Because the dollar
Yeah,
can be worth more than the euro. So technically, you're shorting me if you give me euros at this point.
that's why I'm giving you euros. So yeah,
Just
I
another
give.
way of Americans saying it's soccer, and it's not football anymore. Our money's
Yeah,
worth more, so it's now soccer.
no, that's true.
um, as far as that,
You can choose 5 cards max, but you could
yeah.
just choose one if you want. It's up to you.
I mean, I'm gonna go with I have to just go one big one, and I mean, if I could find a Giuseppe Miyaza Lorati in any condition, I'll take it. If it's 20 grand, most people would say an Alifa, Alifa Pele, and that one wouldn't be far behind due to how iconic it is. I mean, it's going to be forever iconic. Might not be the most rare, but
Yeah.
you know, it is one of the most iconic cards in the hobby and is a grail. But me personally, I love those Italian cards, and it's just been kind of my collection is kind of now focused around these pre-war Italian cards. So I would say that would now become my grail, would be a Miyaza Lorati.
That's a great choice. I also think that card is super iconic. So yeah, it's your turn. Question number 4, I believe.
Let me pull it up here. Question number 4 I have for you is, well, a lot more and more of the vintage collectors are starting to send to CSG. It seems like a lot they're taking more time now to grade the rare cards, which SGC kind of brushed off, and PSA just wouldn't grade because they don't have set lists, or not set list. I can't even. They just won't do the time for the research on them because they don't have the whole checklist. That's what I'm trying to get at. Do you feel that CSG could continue to be a major player if they continue to grade some more of these rare cards?
That's a great question. I think so, especially because if you look at all the money they have backing up the company, I know that does not translate into them being relevant, but I think can give some longevity for the company. Mm-hmm. So I think so, and I think if they are smart, and at least I believe they have great people there, they can target certain areas of the soccer card market, like vintage, like pre-war. Even, for example, I had the Buffon Japanese version that PSA is not making any distinction on the back, which I thought made no sense otherwise, because it's much more difficult to find. I sent to SCC, also got rejected, and I sent to CSG, and they graded correctly. So this niche stuff, they have a lot of potential. And I mean, if you think about true collectors in the soccer card market, I hope I don't offend anyone, but I think most people are in pre-modern, in vintage, in pre-war. Modern is more a flipping game, at least for now. So I think they have tremendous potential, being honest. I know, I don't know, a 5 there will not be equal as a 5 on PSA. For me, something that I think a lot. I care about the card, not about the labeling company, the grade. There is 5s that look so good, other 5s that don't look that great. So different conversation, honestly, but I will be grading with them a lot, especially if there is stuff that they are the only ones doing. So
absolutely.
Question number 5, and this is a free question for you, and popular opinion or take about the soccer card market, about the hobby, could be about the card market in general, but it's up to you.
Well, I don't know if you're going to like it, but I'll say it. I've been someone who's kind of been, now I will say this. I have never really purchased or gone into buying Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi cards. And it's not because I don't want to, or not because I would not love to add one. I would absolutely love to add a 71 bis. I would absolutely love to, add a Mundi Chromo. I would love to add those to my collection at some point, but I really feel, and this is my hot take, I really feel that the Messi market will continue to keep dropping. And I feel like it's just way too oversaturated at this point. And I just don't see a rebound for Messi anytime soon. I just think that there's too many options and too many cards, and people flexing these stacks of 50 on Instagram of ungraded cards. And it hurts me to say it, because when you have a top 5 GOAT and you just see this, it's kind of heartbreaking. And, for someone, why would I rather put my money into that right now when I know that there's going to be so many more of them floating around for so many more years? So it pains me to say, I just don't see a rebound for the Messi market anytime soon.
No, and I think it's a fair take, honestly. I know in the past we had some disagreement about this, but one thing that I pride myself is, look, at the end of the day, we don't know for sure, and I respect your take, and you end up justifying very well why you believe is the case. One contrapoint I could make is, I think the Messi market is down without a doubt, but I don't think talking more about the rookies right now, I think it depends a bit. For example, if you start talking about the Barça Campeón, I probably agree with you at this point. I mean, they end up going up so much in pop reports. The Catalan versions, they are still fairly rare in top grades, but overall, I agree with you, for example. But the ST sticker, I actually think is a great rookie for Messi, because it seems to have more strong rarity. I'm not saying true rarity like pre-war, but for the Messi market, is quite low pop. So I think it's also important to adapt. If you have a lot of Messi Barça Campeón, especially mid grades, which I think is a dangerous place to be, I mean, try to sell a couple and maybe buy a ST sticker, PSA 7, PSA 8. I have no idea about the prices right now. So I think you are correct, honestly. I just think that in the Messi market, you can still find opportunity. You just need to go probably in a different direction than it was in the past. So,
yeah,
your turn.
Let me pull up my last one here. Now, this is kind of an odd question, and I have never seen anyone talk about this, but I do think that it might have some importance. There's a lot more TV shows in America popping up about soccer. You have, Ted Lasso, that is absolutely huge here, and now you have another one called Wrexham. Do you think that this would have an effect on more people enjoying the sport when actually Drive to Survive brought in so many people into F1? Why couldn't these shows do the same for the sport here in America?
Okay, great question. I would say one thing. I'm not super familiar with the American shows you are talking about, but I would love to add a thing into this conversation, and I would also love to know your opinion on this. I think the F1 show for sure had an impact, but I also think the F1 show was very well made. So it's not people think, oh, if there is a show. Yeah, but the F1 show was almost, I would say, an outlier in the sense that was very addicted. I watched season 1 recently, and I don't care about F1, being honest with you, but I kind of enjoyed. So I also think it's important to have a great direction on the show, etc. I'm not sure if the ones you are talking are amazing or not. I believe in you to be fair. But I think soccer, if you look at the growth in America, if you look in the growth of the soccer card market, we are going up. I mean, there is no doubt about that. Like you said with the Messi market, yes, there is some corrections. Like, for example, even Pelé rookies are facing a correction right now in general. So, but I think we are going up. But great items, they also don't go up that fast in my perspective. It's more a slow rise because a lot of them are in the hands that don't let them go that fast, so they don't trade well a lot of times. But I think another interesting point to add in this conversation, and I'm not sure if you are aware of this, is Goldin, the auction house. There will be a show on Netflix about the auction house. And from what I heard, to be fair, they will show soccer because they really want the international potential. And I mean, does not get much better than soccer if you want to target Europe, Asia, etc. So I'm super bullish in the soccer card market in all eras. To be fair, again, I have my confirmation bias for pre-modern and vintage, but I'm very biased overall. I'm not sure if you saw recently, but it's crazy the amount of FIFA streamers that have been breaking products live. I started to feel that eventually the ultra modern market can actually gain some momentum of that. Again, it's not a market that me and you care that much, but you have Castro, you have other streamers that I don't even know the name, but they have a lot of viewers that are always breaking Museum, Chrome, whatever. I think, and think about this, what other sport you see stuff like this happening? There is none. I mean, soccer is so unique, have so much potential that I think it's a great time to be in the market, honestly. And I think in 10 years, we'll look back to this time and miss this time because things end up being super cheap right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I totally understand that. And the only difference between, I guess, the F1 show would be that was more of a documentary take. And Ted Lasso, for example, was more of like kind of like a comedy driven type thing. But apparently Wrexham is about Wrexham FC, who Ryan Reynolds purchased. So he's an owner. And I think it's more documentary type of it. So I'm curious to take on what people will think. I think it just came out I don't know if the first episode or first season, it just came out last week. So it's fairly new, but just to see these shows kind of pop up more, that has to say something about people wanting interest in, seeing shows about the sport, which I think that alone just tells me something right there. So.
Yeah, I was looking at some stats on, I believe, SPN, and soccer have been growing a lot in the US. I know we have been talking about this for a long time, but I mean, it's a reality. And you probably know this much more than me. I think a lot of mothers, dads, they prefer to put kids in soccer versus other sports because it could be a little bit more safe. You probably know what's going on with American football, with all the trauma that they can get, etc. Yeah, I think soccer have great long run perspective, honestly. But going back to the question number one, and this is where you shine right now. Favorite pre-war players to collect. I think the first one was Piola, right?
Yeah.
Let's start with that. Why you think Piola is a great player to collect? Why you like him so much? Which, by the way, I'm aware of him, legendary player. People talk a lot about Miyaza. Recently, I've been seeing the hobby giving more respect to Piola, but yeah, Pioli was same level to be fair, and people focus so much on Miyaza. But yeah, share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, why I think Piola, just for collector purposes. Now, I will say that Giuseppe Miyaza might be the number one pre-war player, most important pre-war player out there to purchase. If I, and this is not advice, I'm not telling anyone, well, even if you try to go buy a Miyaza card, you're going to need all the luck in the world because you're going to have a lot of competition. So first off, that's just a big thing to note. Second, Piola, I feel just value wise. I mean, there's a lot of cards of him out there from the 30s and 40s that are just quite affordable. And, I don't have the bankroll that some of these guys do. So, I wanted to just collect, right? It had not, I mean, I bought some of these cards for $7 to $10. It wasn't like I was going out and spending $1,000 a card on this guy. So just looking at his stats, how important, how good of a striker he was, how many records he held for so long, and just how important he is. I mean, just like Miyaza, he has a stadium named after him. So, I mean, they're like kind of 1A, 1B, and why is he so cheap? And this guy is so expensive. So, for the collector aspect of things, I just felt he's just fun because he's accessible. I haven't really looked at the accessibility of him lately. I know there's a few cards, available, but yeah, I mean, if the rarer the issue, of course, you're gonna, have to pay a little more for them. But I mean, some of these here, like I have a couple. This one, is probably the most common Piola you'll find on eBay. I think I spent $7-8 on it. I mean, you could still, find these cheap. I mean, and they're beautiful cards.
But what's the name of the set?
This one is, I don't know if this is a Saconia. So a couple of the normal sets from, you'll probably know it from the Puskas is Nanina, which is a very common set. You'll have Nanina, Saconia. These are Tuto Calcios and Bia. which PSA does grade these now, which is actually very nice to see them grading more of even the 1940s issues. It just shows that they're putting in more effort to want to, push our market forward. And, even some of these here that I'll show you, these are all from the 1930s. And they're considered, well, this one right here is an Italian trade card of Piola. And
that's a great photo.
Yeah, and a lot of it, if you can get the Pro Vercelli, you can get the Lazio cards. This is a Cioccolato Zani. I think this is 1936.
Amazing.
Some of them are blank backs, some of them have backs. This one I love just from the portrait photo and the colors.
Okay.
And great this card. Is just a 1930s trade card blank. And I absolutely love it. It doesn't need to have, I don't need an RC logo. I don't need to have a back on it. I just love it. And you can actually get these in different backing colors. There's orange, there's yellow, there's blue, and there's collectability behind it, just like other sets. So, I have some that I have multiple colors, but this one I actually love. It's an early Lazio card.
That's a beautiful card. I love that with the name, with the players. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I have one that's colorized of this. That's actually quite rare.
I believe I saw on your Instagram that. Yeah. So this is another good time that we again check Brad Instagram if you like this type of stuff. If you want to learn more. I'm not sure if you are aware, but Piola is still the top goal scorer ever in the Italian league, which is crazy to think about, especially Italy. I mean, look at how many legendary strikes end up playing there, and Piola is still, and I believe he's still top 3 for the Italian national team. I believe the Piola is ahead of Miyaza on the league, but Miyaza is ahead of him for Italy. So, but both, again, as you can see, both are legendary. So I think that's an amazing choice by you. And he's a player that I will start searching stuff for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and SGC has been grading. This is a 1938 Balila. I mean,
that's for me as a vintage collector, I love that stuff so much.
And look at like the colors on the sides of this. This is a 46 Ciconia.
Beautiful.
The colors, like the borders, they're just beautiful cards. And I mean, they're accessible too somewhat. I mean, they're getting harder and harder, but like I just think that they're just stunning just looking. So
yeah. And honestly, pains me to see SGC not grading new stuff, because I actually love the look of these cards on SGC. I think SGC for vintage really looks quite great. So it's a shame that they are not opening a little bit more. The second player, the name was quite difficult, so I would love.
Yeah. It's hang on 1 second here. Let me pull it up here. So his name is Max Wuznum. And he was actually a sportsman from the UK. Now he played for Manchester City. He captained the English national team. He was a cricketer. He played snooker. And I mean, he actually won Wimbledon and won an Olympic medal in tennis. So you have a guy
he won a Grand Slam on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so crazy.
So he played for Manchester City. Like, how do you? He's like we have guys like Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders. This guy did everything, and I mean, there's actually a book about him, first called All Around Genius.
Oh, that's so great, honestly.
And it's really like there's just so many weird things about him. Like he beat Charlie Chaplin playing ping pong with a butter knife.
Oh my God.
how random is that? Like where do stories like that happen nowadays? So I guess I was just intrigued about him, and I actually got this one from Al. It's a 1920s Clarnico, which is a pretty rare issue of him. And when I went to Al, he's like, how do you even know who he is? And I'm like, he's interesting, he's different. Nobody's asking about Max Wuznum, for who he is. And I mean, the guy's story is crazy. I mean, who captains the English national team, plays for Man City, wins tennis medals, and he was an amazing cricketer. And I mean, what type of athlete like that exists nowadays? So
it's crazy.
I mean, I literally just have just a bunch of his cards because they're general. I mean, these are like $5, I mean, it's more for collectivity. These are old Pinus cards from 1921. This is a Sunripe, famous footballers.
But as a footballer, he was an important player, or is more about how all-rounded he ended up being, you know?
Yeah, I mean, here's a Manchester City card of him right here. So, you know, for them to make a card of him for Manchester City, you know, clearly I mean, I don't think he would have all these cards. Like, here's a card with him and Billy Meredith on it.
Yeah, he played at top level at least, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, will not.
I mean, he has, you know, mainly from the early 1920s, he has, you know, a bunch of cards, but I mean, I just found him so interesting, and you know, he might not be the greatest footballer, you know, from pre-war, but I just find him to be one of the most interesting. You know, it's just like people have been collecting a lot of Matthias Sindelar because of his story. I found that with Max Wuznum, and you know, it's just, and it's not even for, you know, for investment purposes, it's just straight collection, like just intrigue. And the whole point of me getting into vintage soccer was to learn the sport and the history. And what better way to learn it than about a guy who did all that? Like, I just think it's so cool and just so interesting to me. And, you know, that's what it's about. It's about what I find interesting, not about what everyone else is doing or buying or collecting. So yeah, that's just where my passion lies, in following my own path. And I've always told people that you find something interesting, go with it. And, you know, Max Wuznum is the guy I found interesting. So.
No, for sure. Again, not that the question was for me. I think your choices are amazing. I'm looking into pre-war more, and the players I probably will try to collect, but it's so difficult. It's Spyro because of me being Portuguese. And I also like Sindelar, which is a little bit more mainstream, because his story about all the adversity that he ended up facing is quite crazy. So yeah, I mean, great choices, honestly. So let's move on. The other question in this case was your question. With World Cup approaching, what will be the advice to new collectors jumping into the soccer card market? Let me actually revert this to you, you know, because I thought I ended up already explaining my side. If there is a new collector entering the market that, I don't know, saw Castro opening top scrum on World Cup, which is not even a thing, but what will be the advice you give to him?
I would say, see, it is a very difficult question, because, you know, if they jump into the hype, then they're jumping into the hype of it all. So, I mean, I would say that they should probably look at legends, and I'm not even saying like pre-war, maybe just going with the Pele, Maradona. Look at the top five. I mean, right now Cruyff is very affordable for a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, when I jumped into the soccer world, I didn't even know who Johan Cruyff was. So I'm assuming probably not a lot of newbies would, but you know, it's a perfect opportunity to learn. If they're just doing it for a quick flip, I think we're at the point in our market where a lot of the quick flippers have kind of left and moved on to something else, whether it be sneakers, whether it be something else out there. I don't know. I would just say follow your own path. If you think something looks cool, others probably will too. You know, as far as cards, like, you know, you like those treble cards, right? And then, you know, you just thought they were cool, right? I mean, and then a lot of more people found out about them. People didn't know they existed. So I would say,
but to be fair, I don't even think travel is a great buy at these prices. So let me put this out, because
I don't know anything about treble cards, FYI. I just know of them. So I don't know the prices. I don't know anything about them, because my focus is mainly a little more vintage. So I'm not I'm not going to say buy this or that, but I'm just saying in general, like, I didn't know those existed until people brought those to my attention. So, and they do look cool. So in general, I feel like if you find something that looks cool, others will, you know, like those as well. So that's what I did with the Heinerley cards. I thought they looked cool, you know?
No, that's a great point. And it's also something that I have the same thinking. When I'm buying a card or a set, whatever, that people are not super aware, my first question is that, do I like this? Do I have a joy? Because with time, I've been recognizing that what I like, there is also very likely scenario that in the future people also find my logic why I'm liking this right now. So yeah, I totally agree. But this was not a question, but I will introduce a new one, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Do you still feel that the World Cup will bring a lot of people? Because we know that macroeconomics in general are not great at this point, which could be a bad timing for the World Cup in 2 months or something like that. So, but do you still have hope? Because honestly, I still have hope. I think the World Cup is such a giant event that I kind of still think that most likely we'll see some more people entering the market, basically.
Now, I will say I'll put it as like a two-part answer to that. Do I think more people enter the market for the soccer world? Yes. Now, will we see an effect on prices as much as people think? Maybe because there's a big golden auction that's going to be for the World Cup. So if someone puts up a huge Pele Alifa into that, or one of those big cards, you're going to see big sales, right? But that doesn't necessarily reflect other parts of the market.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the pre-modern cards are going to go up. It doesn't mean that pre-war cards are going to go up. If it brings people in, I hope it, people have to start somewhere. I mean, I started off by buying overpriced Prism cards, and here I am, buying 1920s Italian cards 2 years later. So, I mean, people have to start somewhere. And I think instead of people being negative about people entering a market or whatever, I think people should want more people to come in. I think people should be positive. Hey, buy those, buy the Prism, you see blasters of World Cup Prism at your Target, go buy them, like enjoy opening them. If people have fun with it, I think it'll keep people in the market longer. And if people go in without having a fun mindset in it, like, remember, this is a hobby at the end of the day. Like I have a box full of Italian cards that in my mind, they're not investment at all, could eventually be worthless cardboard, but it's fun for me. If people have a mindset of just enjoying it, and I'm not saying everyone's like that, because there's a lot of people with a lot of money in the market, so I get it. But I think those people too are doing it for fun and for the challenge and the chase. And if it brings more people into it and people have fun and enjoyable and learn along the way,
Very, very well said, being honest with you. I could not agree more. Again, you said basically everything I want to say, but my English not allow me to be open with you. I also think that don't also let other people tell you what you should collect. At the end of the day, like you said, is a hobby. One thing is look at pre-war, look at what I collect, what you collect, and think, you know what, I actually believe is into something. There is some logic into that. But if there is someone really forcing you to go into this direction, that's honestly a bad sign. Go with what you believe and what gives you joy, because at the end of the day, I mean, every card needs a home. If that's why flipping is very important, because increases liquidity into the market, but is also dangerous, because if this is a hot potato type of game, someone will get burned. So very, very, very well said, and I completely agree with you. Moving on, the second question was your top pre-war vintage sets, pre-war sets. Since you end up talking about pre-war mostly, let's actually go in a different direction. What about vintage? Let's forget pre-war a bit, because I also know you love vintage, even though you've been engaging more into pre-war recently. I know a set that you and me share the passion is Einarl 59, which for some reason nowadays SEC is grading 60, 61. And they don't explain me why. I send a lot of emails to them.
Pains me to see it every time I see that. And the explanations that they give just hurt even worse.
But Brad, I would not even be mad if they prove me wrong. Okay, this is why I would be, oh, look, amazing. I was not, because I don't even think that matters that much. Maybe for the Pele card could matter a little bit, but for the Puskás, I don't think he's super well if he's 59 or 60. He's the same thing. Yeah. It's more the fact that they don't explain the reason. The reason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, the Heinerle set, that was actually my first major purchase in the vintage world. I bought the complete 1959-1960, and I hope you're listening to me, SGC, 1959-1960 Heinerle set. Now, one thing about the Heinerle sets that some people don't know, and I think is important, that doesn't get talked about enough, there's actually two variations of that set. There's the Looter, Lutter, and Shoot, Schutt. Now, the Shoot set was actually the rarest variation. Now you can tell the back of it, on the back of it, there's actually a different design. I unfortunately don't have any of the Shoot cards here to kind of compare, but the Shoot and the Looter are actually more rare than the Heinerle versions themselves. So
Okay.
if you're looking for variations, a little more rarity, I think that people should understand that those are more rare, and those actually were released earlier than the Heinerle sets themselves. So first and foremost, I think that that's something that's kind of left out of the hobby. People are, buying the Yashins, buying all these other cards, but for the ones with the white border, those are the ones the Looter cards are actually bigger. Looter and Shoot, they're actually taller in size than the Heinerle. So that's how you can tell. But yeah, I absolutely love this set. And I actually spent, I'll even say it, I spent $960 on a complete 180 card 1959-1960 Heinerle set. And it was posted in the vintage Discord, and there was 25 of us. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I love these cards.
That's a great deal.
Yeah.
Looking back, that's a great deal.
Yeah. I mean, I had the Pele, all of them, the Yashin, all of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use this as my gateway to learning about vintage. So for me, that set has, definitely a little place in my heart because of kind of what kind of sprung that vintage love for me. It wasn't the first, it was my first major purchase, but it wasn't my first. It was like everyone else. I started with the Stanley Matthews, Art Ath and, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean,
but Brett, that's my favorite card on the set. I think I actually, yeah, that's my favorite. I think it's the beautiful blue background. And I was talking with this on one of my earlier podcasts, I believe with James, that imagine if Pelé had that type of picture on the Einer set. That card will be crazy. Honestly, I think Puskás, Di Stefano, Yashin, Kubala, all of them have great photos. I think the Pelé is the one that could be a little bit better since we don't even see Pelé that well. But overall, is a beautiful set. But you end up touching in something. Again, I'm adding this to the conversation, but I think is important that you end up saying Stanley Matthews, etc. But that's a great point. Not all pre-war stuff is rare, right? I think you agree with me. I mean, sets like probably, again, from my experience from other markets like Carreras, I don't find that super difficult to find. Ardat, maybe a little bit more, but also not super difficult to find. I would love if you can add something into this topic that even in pre-war, you basically need to still do research. It's not that I buy pre-war goes up and does not work that way.
I wish it did. I wish it worked that way. But I mean, like I said, if you find a player you find interesting, I mean, what is not rare in pre-war? I think the most graded pre-war card is probably Stanley Matthews Ardath. I think there's maybe 250 of them graded. So, or something, maybe even less, honestly. There might even be less than that. So what is rare? I mean, at that point, I mean, good luck if you want to find Dixie Dean, right? Good luck trying to find the 1925 DC Thompson. Like you're not going to have much luck unless you overpay on PWCC Vault, for example, right? So everyone goes to his 1926 form footballers because it's more accessible and it's a little cheaper and it's one of his earliest cards. But then one thing about pre-war is just because it's their earliest card doesn't make it their most valuable. And that's something that people need to know about pre-war because I have a Billy Meredith rookie. I have a Billy Meredith 1902 Ogden's Meredith at work card. By the way. Yeah, thank you. And honestly, I would give that away. Give me a 1907 Taddy. Give me a Copes Clips. Give me one of those. You can take my Meredith rookie and give me one of those any day. It's not about year with pre-war. It's about rarity. And
great point.
And I think that a lot of people, maybe might be like, oh, I got the earliest card, because in your mind you always want that early, that rookie. But like same with Steve Bloomer, there I'll take a Steve Bloomer Tatty. You can have my Ogden's rookie. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy and grateful that I have, an early card of one of the earliest legends of the game. Don't get me wrong, like I love the card and I bought it because I loved it, but there's so much rarity out there in pre-war that people will be like, well, why is this card worth more than this one? Because it's rare, it's harder to find. And Cope's clips, the Solas, the Jay Sinclair's. I mean, I could literally just list so many. Even for Dixie Dean Lovell's, there was like a beat up Lovell's that went for $1,000 recently, and I was just like, wow, like there's been one that's appeared in the last 2 years on eBay. And yeah, I mean, just seeing the rarity of these sets compared to the year doesn't always equate to your value. So that's something that's a huge learning curve that people getting into pre-war, need to understand. And there's guides actually in certain books, like of rarity. Carl Wilkes has a book that he actually added a rarity guide. So you could look up the issue. And I use that sometimes as just a basic guide. And I think that's a good suggestion for anyone getting into pre-war. Have that book by you. If you're scouring on eBay UK or any of the eBays and you're just like, okay, like, is this rare? I mean, I probably DM'd Bill and Al a million times. Hey, is this rare? Hey, is this easy to find? Because I had no idea what to look for or what was or wasn't rare. So
yeah. I guess the story that I can share with you that you might find funny is I collect Queen Elizabeth, at the time was Princess Elizabeth, early cards, and there is 3 or 4 rookies. I'm still not sure if there is 4, at least 3 I'm aware. One is a Carreras card, another one is a Ardat card, and there is another one that is a Mitchell and Son. From what I understand, that's more related with Scotland type of releases. And the Carreras, I think, is quite easy to find. Again, condition rarity, of course, is a thing. The Ardat is probably even the easiest one, but the Mitchell and Son is, I don't find easy at all, So, but funny enough, I sold recently a couple of them, and they sell for the same. And in my mind, I thought, oh man, the person that got the Mitchell and Son ended up getting a much better deal than the one paying so much for the Ardat. So basically, again, you are completely correct. And nothing is easy at the end of the day. You need to do a lot of research. And even sometimes, I'm not saying the books you are mentioning are incorrect or not, because I assume they are great books. But even sometimes what people saying on internet could be wrong. I mean, a lot of times I experienced that. I think, I'm not sure. I think this is actually quite rare, and the time of improving. Actually, I was correct on that. So interesting stuff, honestly. But yeah, pre-war, like this show is about pre-war. It's such an amazing market, honestly.
And I mean, one thing too, everything is always evolving in vintage. Like, for example, look at Zico. For a while, everyone thought the 1976 Saravan was his rookie. And then all of a sudden, now you have 1973s pop up. Now you have 1971s. So just because, 1 minute, I think I've had like 30 cards that I thought were rookies now turn into 2nd and 3rd year cards overnight. And I'm like, well, that is what it is. And, it's not something that's just defined, because it's every day something new I've never seen before pops up on, on eBay or on the Discord. And I'm like, whoa, I've never seen that. Like, what is this? Where did this come from? So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you do jump into a market like this or want to learn more, stuff's always changing, stuff's always evolving. And, it's fun to keep up with, because it's not straightforward, like, ultra modern where what it is and this is their rookie and this and that. There's just so many more issues and stuff that are always being discovered, and I love it.
No, I agree. I think it's such great market, and the rookie stuff. I'm not sure if this is a hot take, but I don't even care that much about rookie in pre-war. Even in vintage, for example, of course, if you are buying a Cruyff, you want a rookie, because we know that people put so much value into that. But for example, the Koenig set, I know the Cindelar rookie is quite rare, but there is a couple of releases that I don't think are even that difficult to find for Cindelar. And I'm aware that the Koenig is probably not even the most Cindelar, the most rare Cindelar, but I like the set so much that at the end of the day, I look at all of that stuff like rookie material, still cars that are so early. There is not a lot of stuff probably. So I think pre-modern, modern, even vintage for goats, I think the rookie concept makes a lot of sense, and people put a big premium on that. I mean, we see this with Cruyff, with Maradona, etc. But I think for players like, again, pre-war legends, Piola, I mean, at the end of the day, of course, the earliest card for Piola, there will be a premium for that. But I think the market is much more complex than this is the hook. There is a lot of early cards that all of them are important. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's fun to just find out, like it's confusing to some people when they see a card that's later going for more money and they don't understand why. And it's a huge, like I said, huge learning curve with pre-war, with vintage. But that's how you learn as you go. And I think that's not for everyone. Some people like it more cut and dry, but for me, I think it's fun and exciting. And, I love to see new stuff that has never been posted before and never seen before. I don't know what other market you really get that in. I mean, American vintage baseball, every issue has been shown and discovered.
Yeah.
With our football soccer market, it's so I don't want to say new because it's not new, but there's still so many new things just always popping up.
Yeah, my previous market was Magic the Gathering, and it's similar to an American sport in a way that everyone knows everything. Basically, there is, to be fair, much less releases, but soccer is amazing because 100% in 10 years from now there will be a lot of rookies that we end up not being aware at the moment we are recording. So that's what's so great. Actually, I will revert the second question for you again. I hope you don't mind, because I thought, again, I end up explaining myself that you said, moving more into the pre-war stuff. I bought the Pyrotail recently, but I will revert the question, because I also know, since we talk from time to time, that you have been getting a little bit more into pre-modern. Understanding that is not your main market, but can I see you more also into pre-modern? Can I see you engaging more on that area of the market, since vintage and pre-war are still your main ones?
Yeah, I mean, do I like the pre-modern market? Absolutely. Now, the part where I struggled with pre-modern and kind of why I might push back a little from it is because in the early like 90s or whatever, I don't have that like personal tie because I'm still kind of new into the soccer world. I don't have that like emotional tie to a lot of the 90s guys that a lot of people do, just in general, I see people that are, that love Ronaldo and, just love all these guys from the 90s and,
Nils with Zidane, for example.
Yeah. He's a perfect example. And, I think for me, especially like where as you can see, I'm very passionate about the pre-war Italian. And, I felt that I might want to push the pre-modern money into more of my Italian. So I feel like everyone's kind of quest is different, and it's like someone like Buffon and Barisi, like they're legends forever. And one thing about them, the way I look at it is, I can always go on eBay and get one of those. They're not really going anywhere. Now, I might not be able to get the Japanese back version like someone here, but what I'm saying though is they're always kind of more available, more so than my stuff. If one of the cards I want pops up, I might never see it again for another 5 years. It could never even pop up again for all I know. So I think that it all depends on the person. It all depends on the mindset, depends on the person's passion for certain eras. Like, Nils is the French king. He has every French sticker that you could ever imagine. I always ask him questions about anything regarding that, and his passion's amazing. I love that.
Nils collection is beautiful because you can understand the way he sees the market. You can understand his passion. Is, I don't know, when I look at his collection, okay, I get he loves Zidane, then Platini because it's the other group great. Recently, he's getting a little bit more into Benzema. So he loves the French market quite a lot. And I honestly think that's beautiful to see. But the same way, I think it's beautiful to see you with the Italian players. I mean, that's collecting. And this is something that I do bad on my channel, being honest with you. I talk a lot about the financial side of the market, etc. To be fair, because I also think that's a lot of what my viewers want to hear about, to have a perspective. But sometimes this type of conversation that I'm having with you, that I had with Niels, I feel this is what we need more. People talking why they love this. Well, value will automatically connect later, but yeah, I think Niels is a great example. You are another great example. And I will actually connect another question with this one. I'm reverting a lot of stuff for you, but I think it's honestly interesting. I end up asking you the best quality you see in pre-war. And I think true rarity is probably the thing that you like the most. I also like the most. But let's make a game. Let's say ultra modern. If you had to make an argument for ultra modern, what do you think would be the best thing for them? Because the reality is, even if we live in a bubble on all the discords where people collect more vintage stuff, big part of the market is still collecting top scrum, museum, whatever it is the new set. What do you think is that strong argument to be in that market, which is difficult because we like vintage so much, pre-modern, etc. But why? I don't know, because I'm thinking about that and I don't have a good answer, honestly.
I have an easy answer for it. It's instant gratification, because I could turn on the TV and watch him play. If I want, I pull a Erling Haaland Golazo out of 5, and then I see him score 3 goals for Man City. I'm like, hell yeah, like bring it on. It's just, doing more for my card. You have that instant gratification of owning a card of a guy you can.
A gambling effect almost, right? That, yeah. Okay, I made money today. Even you are not selling the land, but
even in your mind, even though you haven't sold the card, even though that in your head you're like, yes, like he just Phil Foden up. I have optic rated rookie, ultra pumpkin laser parallel out of 20, and he just scored 3 goals with 2 assists. But that's what I'm saying. Like people love that because they get to cheer on their teams, their favorite players, or if they just believe in the guy, then they can, it's literally a gambling effect in my mind. It's pretty much the same thing, and people love it and they're passionate about it. I think that's cool. For me, it didn't work out. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to when I was buying $200 Messi base prisms. But hey, you live, you learn. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have the collection I have now. So
of course,
people make mistakes, and I think that people should, if they want to go out and buy an Mbappe, if they want to buy a Haaland, if they want to go, spend a ton on Brendan Aronson, like, if you believe in him and that's something you're cool with, go for it. Like, who am I to tell anyone what to do with their money? That's up to you.
I would say one other thing is, your point is great, that there is that dopamine effect when you go into. I mean, I have Messi, and when Messi plays well, I feel a little bit better about my cards. It's not exactly like the new rookies, to be fair, but to a certain point, I understand that logic. And I would say another thing. At the end of the day, ultra modern have numbered cards, and I think that can give some comfort to, let's say you really believe in Mbappe. If you have out of 10 Mbappe top scrum, which is crazy expensive, but I would say that's a good thing. That at least the pop will be 10 at best. And I think in pre-modern and even in vintage, pre-war is a little bit different. We miss that because there is 2 key things to understand: demand and supply, and we have no idea about both. That's, even if you try to predict, will the demand be bigger for this player? Well, again, makes sense, but we don't know. What about the supply? We also don't know. At least in pre-modern, not in pre-modern, in ultra-modern, they know, okay, there is 500 numbered cards for this one. This, again, goes into another conversation that right now there is 100 sets, so it's not exactly 500 cards, but at least they have that. And to continue with the game, now let's go into pre-modern, and I will start because I think for me this is a easy one. I think the biggest quality that pre-modern can have or have right now will be demographics. I think that there is a lot of people around my age, even a little bit younger probably, that will hit their financial peak maybe in 10 years. So, and there is also the nostalgia effect that can, for example, do I think Ronaldinho is a top 10 player? Well, probably not. But for me, automatic, it is because it's a player that ended up make me fell in love with soccer. And I believe there will be more of that. I'm not talking about Ronaldinho in particular, but for players like Messi, like Cristiano Ronaldo, I think the nostalgia effect, demographics are great. So, but what about you?
Like the player that I would deem like that?
No. What's actually you can share that, of course, but what's the quality, the best? If you know what, pre-modern have this well, this is the best quality for pre-modern.
See, I don't think that I can answer that because I'm not deep into pre-modern as much to be able to, and the other reason is the reason I got into this was to kind of learn from the history forward. So I kind of focused more on the deep pre-war to be able to do that. Like for me, if you were to be like, who would be like the defining three, pre-war guys that people would look back on at any point, I would say, Billy Meredith, Steve Bloomer, Dixie Dean, right? Because that would be my answer to that. But for pre-modern, I can't answer that and give you a real one because I haven't done my research enough to be able to
makes
kind
sense.
of put that out there. I don't want to give an answer to something that I don't have the passion behind. And I don't have that glaring passion for the pre-modern world to be able to answer that, if that's fair.
No, it's fair, 100%. So let me see. Okay, the question number 3 was about the vintage Discord, my Discord, if they create FOMO into collectors, because like, again, I already end up saying yes. Actually, again, share me your perspective on this. Do you think the vintage Discord, which is probably the one you uses the most since it's the one that goes more into the market you collect, do you ever felt that you end up getting some type of FOMO there? Do you think in general Discords are a good thing for the hobby? What's your take on this?
I think Discords are important. I think that, yeah, I mean, it's kind of natural when you see someone buy something really cool. You kind of are like, whoa, like that's awesome. Like, how do I get one? Right. You definitely can have that effect, but I think the part with the vintage part where it kind of gives you a reality check, because I'll go in there and people are buying 10, 20, $30,000 pre-war cards. And I'm like, I'm bargain hunting on eBay Italy for 10 euro, scraps. Right. So it kind of is a reality check where I can't, even if I wanted to, I can't buy one of those cards for the most part. So, I guess the FOMO for a lot of the stuff that I want isn't there because I know I just can't afford it. I don't have the bankroll for it. But I mean, you could say that about any market.
And by the way, we are saying Discords, but it's a little bit bigger than this. I mean, YouTube channels like mine, like Al's,
Right.
or there is a lot of channels right now. This goes even Instagram influencers, because that's another way of influencing people. There is people on the soccer card world with almost 10K followers. Yes, they don't make content for YouTube, but they probably have even a bigger reach than a smaller YouTube. So Discords are just an example to be clear on this. To be fair, is where you find deeper conversations, I would say, but this goes into basically all the social media that you can think.
With pre-war though, for the most part, if there's a lot of stuff like Al will post something even if I wanted the card, I can't even find it. It's some of the stuff that's so rare. Like even if I had an unlimited bankroll, I wouldn't even be able to find it because there's none out there. So I think it's a little different with pre-war because most people, like I said before, they really do have that diamond hand quality of not wanting to let anything go. You mentioned Seb earlier. Him and I talk a lot. We work together a lot, and he's a great guy. And we both are like we always joke that we're big hoarders. We hoard everything. We hoard all the Italian cards we can get, and we love it. We just like get them all. It's just like collect them all. Literally, I'm too old for the Pokemon era, but literally Pokemon, like collect them all. Like we want them all. We see Italian cards on eBay, we want them. Like just give them over here. So
actually, let me give a shout out to him because he seems like a great guy. And you guys are actually similar. It's funny that you end up mentioning him because two different persons, of course, but you guys are also engaging in a very similar way of the market. I think I'm correct to say this, right?
Yeah, no, we both send each other stuff that we're like interested in, or we know that they're going to be interested in. I mean, we're literally grinding and hunting every day for this stuff. And, that's something that like Bill and Al are like, well, we already been in the trenches. So like Seb and I have kind of taken over like certain like areas. Yeah. And there's other people out there too. There's, Graham, who always, he's always doing it too. I mean, we're not the only ones doing it, but we really do take it pretty seriously. And, that's our passion drives it. So
I believe I also know him. Is Graham Norcal Card, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Is another great guy. I believe I interact with him a couple of times on Instagram. And to be fair, our community is still relatively small, so we basically know not everyone, but close to at least the people that are on the Discord groups. We are very aware of them.
Yeah, we have to work together too. We message each other like, hey, are you going for this? Because, I planned on bidding on it, or, something like that, because, we always kind of keep it real with each other, because, we all want to work together. If one person gets out all of everything, then it's kind of not really going to be, for years, Al did that. Now he's kind of tapped out of it, and we can kind of grab the scraps that he left behind. So, we all kind of work together and make sure that everyone kind of gets a little piece of the pie. I think it's fair, it's fun, and it's not as savage as some of the ultra modern stuff, so.
Yeah, no, for sure. The question number 4 for you was, if I gave you 20k euros, what will be buying? You said, let's say a relative conservative answer. You try a Miyaza, no matter the grade. I'm trying to thinking about if I could spend 20k in a pre-war card. To be fair, I would feel uncomfortable because I feel like I would probably make a mistake since I don't know. If you ask me pre-modern, I probably have a good idea what I would target, or even vintage, to be fair. Pre-war, I don't know. I think your choice is great. I love the look of that card. It looks almost like a vampire or something.
Yeah, he's got evil eyes on it. I think it's just such a cool card, and it might not even be his earliest, but it's just very iconic, a very Italian card that I love the Lorati set. And,
yeah, he's a great card. I think everyone that looks at that card and says is not the iconic card, after you see that, even for the first time, I think will be lying, honestly.
Well, hey, maybe a year from now, you'll actually have an answer to that question. And, I think
that could be possible.
But hey, I don't think you should answer it if you don't have an idea of the market, or like what you think would be a good buy. I think that people always want to answer a question, and if they don't have, they just say whatever they want. And
exactly.
I think it's better not to answer it than to give any answer.
No, yeah, for sure. And 20k can buy you a lot of stuff in pre-war. Let's be real. Of course, unless you touch the top of the top, you buy one and with luck. But if you are buying stuff that people are not looking, 20k is a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
Actually, let me see what was the okay. The question number 4 was about the CSG. That if I believe they will have a great future into the soccer card market, since PSA and the SGC have been rejecting certain items. But I honestly think this question again is really good for you also, because I'm pretty sure you probably agree with me that they have the potential. But are you thinking about grading more with them going forward, for example?
Well, I do have this one. I got it on Comp C, which I randomly found. It's a 1935 Lorati Italian team card.
Okay.
It has Giuseppe Miyaza, and actually
a 9.
Yeah, it's a 9. I was kind of like $150. I'm like, sure, why not? Why not get it? And I wanted to see the slab in hand, so I was like, you know what? Like, the slab is nice.
The slab thick. Is really good, right?
It's very it's better quality than I expected, and I actually like this label better than the green one. I think that this one
much better. I agree.
Yeah, and they put the card in like a, in like a little penny sleeve in here. There's no shifting, and I do have some concerns though, because I did see some stickers in these that had waviness on them, and I have a Baggio rookie that's BGS that's a little wavy, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I think CSG is a work in progress, and they're in the right direction. And I think that, in time, I mean, I'm seeing like crazy Camlers, Dr. Sorosi cards ending up in CSG slabs. It's like super rare Italian cards. And they're actually listening to us. And, I think that I know Al had a conversation with the president of SGC at the National, and they're going to try and work with us a little more to try and push our grading a little further, because Al used to get these nice cuts done of like all like the circulars with the pogs and with like the triangles. That SGC would do nice cuts on the slabs, and then they stopped caring. They kind of they felt that they can make their money more in ultra modern and grade their prism cards and be happy. And now the tables have turned. Now they have no backlog. They have all the time in the world. And now they kind of need people like us, because they see a Giuseppe Miyaza Lorati going for 60 grand in their slab. They see this. They know that, what's selling for high amounts of money in those. So, maybe that sale kind of rang a bell to them that, hey, like, this stuff actually, this little niche market is worth a little more than we probably thought. So, I'm hopeful that SGC will step it up a bit. I've paused completely on grading for right now, because I want to just compile. I want to keep eating up the cards, and I'd rather put my money into that, because when PSA decides to go down, that's going to bring all the other companies' prices down even more. And next month, PSA's backlog is done. So I assume by the end of the year, we're going to really see some really heavy, like, competitive pricing out of all these companies, because they're going to really be trying to get everyone to grade with them. So I paused until at least the end of the year. I might grade some random autographs. I've been collecting pre-war autographs lately, so I have like a Giuseppe Miyaza autograph I want to grade, and some other ones. So just another little added bonus to like collect and have fun with pre-war. I love it. But yeah,
actually, my experience with CSG recently was amazing, because like I told you, I sent the Buffon to SGC, they rejected, no reason, which, by the way, we are talking about the Panini sticker. It's crazy to think they are rejecting that stuff. But then I was, oh man, maybe I cannot grade this for some reason, because actually I was not finding the checklist. But I end up sending an email to CSG and explain what's going on. And less than 1 hour, I got an answer, and they said, send the card to us. Basically something like that, very direct, don't worry. And I got graded, easy. I mean, my experience with them, very little. In the past, I graded a lot of bulk with them, when green label, not with the new one. And I have nothing to say bad about them. And I would say another thing. Even SGC, I was a big fan. I'm still a big fan of them. I love the slab. I think in vintage, they look beautiful. I understand that people like PSA more because of the premium. And all good. I also, if I'm selling, I would prefer to have on PSA, not gonna lie. But as a collector, I think SVC staying away of innovating in the vintage market, in the pre-modern market, I think that's a huge mistake for them long run, honestly. Maybe right now they don't care, but I mean, look how many stuff I'll end up upgrading with them in early phase. I mean, they need to have some type of, and I'm not even sure what is the word, but they need to remember the people that end up supporting them when they are a little bit smaller, etc. It's a shame, honestly, that they are rejecting so much stuff. But PSA, I don't think is doing that much better. To be fair, I also think all of. I mean, we are not even talking about Beckett because that's almost not relevant at this point.
Not at all, unfortunately.
Yeah. No one cares about BVG, but no, but yeah, I mean, I'm also bullish on them, like you on the CSG.
Yeah, I mean, as far as PSA is concerned, I do see them putting in more effort to add Italian sets. They added the Lorati. They grade all the Spanish sets, Orthi, Eduardo Pai. So, I mean, they have definitely come a long way actually in the last year. I'm sure Matt Hendler and those guys, they really, Mitch, they really are trying to help as much as they can. They're not graders. They're not in the research department. They're going out of their way to help, and we can only appreciate as much as they can do. They're not the ones that can approve sets, so people they're just doing it to help our market. And I really do see some progress with PSA. Do I think that the cards look the best in the PSA slabs? Probably not. I mean, I'd rather, the Loratis look great in the Tux. They really do. I'd be curious. I might send in a Lorati to PSA just to see what it looks like. But I think that with the black, with the small Italian cards, I really do like the way that they look. But all we can do is hope for progress, and they've come a long way. I mean, besides obviously Beckett, I think CSG does have. I mean, if they continue to listen to us and want to work with us, I could only see them growing. Us sending more of our cards to them. I couldn't see why we wouldn't, because if they're going to pay attention, and they're not just grading it for the heck of it. They have people that know what they're doing. They have people that are very high standards of grading. And it's not that they're just slabbing anything just to slab it to make us happy. They're really doing the research. They're labeling properly. CSG would put, 1930s. If they don't have the date, they'll put just the decade. They'll put 1930s circa, and then they'll put, the manufacturer or whatever. So, they're labeling it properly. They're authenticating the card. They're labeling it properly. My only concern is with like a sticker, for example, if there's waviness, if I had to be nitpicky, which, you have the Newton rings with PSA, like pick your poison. If you want Newton rings, you want it to be labeled right. I don't know. So you can just wait it out.
I also have a couple of stickers with BGS. I never noticed, at least the ones I graded, to be fair. I bought a couple that I saw that the problem we were talking about, but the ones I graded, I never noticed that problem. But I also think the reason is I send my cards to the PLC Vault, and I think, again, I have no proof of this, by the way, but I think them being in the dark with the perfect conditions may affect the slab. That's why, at least my perspective is that my stickers on BGS are good in the sense that they are not very wavy. But if you have a tome with no control of humidity, stuff like that, I think that's awful. And it's something that they really need to solve, honestly. And that's another problem.
Unless you hold the BGS slab on an angle on the side, you can't even see it if it's wavy. You have to like hold it in hand and on an angle. I mean, you can have the best high quality photos, but it won't matter unless you get it in hand. I mean, every sticker I've ever gotten in a BGS slab has been wavy. So I just have the Baggio because I got it for a really good deal. So I'm not going to pass up on a good deal on something like that. But
the worst I had was like 2 years ago. I remember having a James Rodriguez rookie with Porto. Was a BGS 9.5, which is a top grade for the sticker. Oh man, the sticker was I'm sure if I end up selling the slab that way, but if I was sure if I end up cracking that was a PSA 5. I was very comfortable with that. And yeah, but the thing is, I believe when they graded the sticker, that actually was a BGS 9.5. I don't even doubt their grading standard. I doubt is that the protection end up making again, they need to do research on that, because we also don't know what's going on exactly. I saw some people saying that when they basically glue the slab, could be the heat, but I also saw people saying that makes no sense. That's more about humidity. So again, we are speculating at the end.
We don't know. We're just assuming, throwing
Yeah.
stuff out there and throwing darts. And I mean, if you don't want to take that risk, stay away from the slab entirely. That's the only that's the best. That's the only solution right there. In my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to give CSG a shot and see what they can do and try and work with them, because if I send an email to SGC and I'm like, hey, like, why don't you grade this? And I get a response from the guy like, well, we have the best grading team out there, and our research team knows what they're doing. And I'm like,
is exactly
I feel
that.
like I'm talking to a robot, and I don't like that. And that makes me very hesitant to want to work with them, because I feel like you're calling me stupid without calling me stupid. Like,
no, I also cannot. I had really bad experience with them lately. There is a Cristiano Ronaldo SP set. There is a SP set for Manchester United that they labeled 2004. And I seen a lot of research. Look, guys, this is actually 2003, 2004. Not that I think is even, that relevant, but I thought, let me share with them. Oh man, they end up saying, oh, our research team is one of the best, etc. But I said, okay, but I'm not even doubting that. I believe you guys probably have a very good team. But in this case, actually, you guys are wrong. But they never end up, saying, okay, let me look into this. No, they keep doubling down even more. And it's very frustrating too. And I can imagine with pre-war, it's probably even worse, honestly.
Well, so here's the deal with pre-war with SGC, and it's pretty important that people know this. So you'll go on the SGC pop report, and let's say you pull up a Silvio Piola from 1930s, and you're like, oh, they grade it because they've graded it before. Now, what was explained to me by an SGC employee was on the phone. They told me this. They said that when they changed offices, they actually lost all of L's research that they had on all the pre-war issues. So they lost all the information Al sent them hundreds and thousands of pages of research on all these issues, and they lost it all. So even if it's graded in the SGC pop report, I'll send in cards that have already been graded and they'll reject them. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, you already have this in your system already. You already graded one or two of these. They're like, sorry, we lost the research. And I've heard that numerous times. And I'm like, why? So why? How does a grading team lose research? Like, that is the point of the company, is to research and have this. So when I heard that, it kind of made me a little, I kind of had a little hate towards SGC, and I kind of wavered on the hate and graded a little more with them. But now I just don't see a purpose in grading with them until they prove themselves that they want to grade our stuff and want to put in the effort. I'm not going to send them rare, Piolas or Miyazas now, because what's the point? Why? Like, I don't know. It's very frustrating for pre-war and for us, because they've graded a lot of these Italian cards that I have, and they won't grade them again. You could send them all the 1920, besides like Lorati and maybe Cioccolata Asia. I've seen a couple of those gotten graded, but besides those, it's just like a black hole of getting your cards back and not getting graded. So that's why CSGs kind of appeal to me, because I feel like that they want to grow their pop report and they want to learn about these issues and they want to put in the effort. And that's why I'm kind of leaning towards giving them a shot, because I do like their slabs and I like that the way that they're going about their business right now. And, I know at the National, someone put in a couple people actually did put in big orders of vintage, pre-war Italian and pre-war F1. And, they were very nice. They were very, took in all the research that they gave them. And And yeah, like I want that one. I want more of that.
I saw in their website that they graded the Maradona 77 SCC4. Quite crazy. I mean, that's a top card in the market. One thing that I would add, just to finish basically this topic, is I would not mind, for example, let's say you send a lot of rare stuff that they don't know, talking about SCC right now, that they don't know very well. I think it would be fair from them to tell you, look, right now it's true that we don't have backlog and we are turning things in 1 week, but for this we need 1 month, 2 months. I think that will be fair from them. Okay, I understand that you guys need to do research. As long you guys have the information you need and you feel confident, I would be okay waiting. And even if, look, you send 10, they grade 7, that would happen. The problem, like you said, and like what I have experienced, is they almost reject you in a hard way. That's the problem. And one thing that I would say for PSA is, both what's the name, Matt, and what's the other person that works at Mitch, exactly. They are on my Discord. I think they are also on the Vintage Discord. I respect that, because they are interacting with us. At least maybe there is, but I'm not aware of any of the other grading companies being on the other on Discord. And not that they need to make a good job. Let me put that out there. But if the biggest company is doing that, I think that's a sign that it's important to learn almost from the source. I don't know, it's frustrating, but I'm still hopeful on CSG. And even in the other grading companies, I think with time things will get better, to be honest. So to finish this, let's actually connect both questions. Your unpopular opinion that you believe, for example, the Messi market can take a while to recover. And let's actually add with the question you had for me, in the sense that you said F1 is having a boom, or at least had a boom 6 months ago because of the F1 show. Why soccer cannot do that? And my question will be a mix of both right now. So don't you think that if those shows have an impact, players like Messi, players like Cristiano Ronaldo could be the ones getting the most, gaining the most? Because let's be real, if people come into the market, they will not start automatic looking at pre-war. They probably will go for Mbappe, for the Messi, Neymar, for the big stars right now. So do you think it's fair that if there is that type of almost mania, almost explosion, that a player like Messi, even if you believe that can take a while, can also be one that benefits the most?
I mean, you can't say no, because clearly when you're the GOATs and you're the best of the best, of course, that could happen. I mean, obviously the big four, Messi, Haaland, Mbappe, and CR7 are the guys that would definitely be impacted the most. But I mean, I guess it's all speculation at that point, of course.
No, you are correct. But let me say one thing. Even if that happens, I also think vintage, there will be a trickle-down effect. I mean, people will try to discover more. I mean, you are a good example of that. I mean, you started with modern and you are collecting pre-war. So, and this goes into the other question we had, that we also need, if that happens, and will be amazing, of course, we also need to be very welcome to people entering the hobby, because we never know, Let's say if 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and a guy was rude to you, in the sense, look, this guy is just playing in modern. But look at you now, you are actually engaging in one of the areas that, at least in my perspective, could be one of the most complex ones on the market. So this is an interesting conversation, honestly. At least I enjoy talk about this quite a lot. But just to put you on a spot, do you think the F1 documentary is the reason F1 got so popular? And if that's the case, can F1 be facing a bubble or a mania?
So do I think that that's the reason F1 got popular? Absolutely. Now, as far as a bubble,
my feeling also.
as far as a bubble, I don't think that. I think at this point, probably I don't know. I mean, you don't really hear many people talking about F1 cards as much as you did before. So I think
Yeah.
that I'm watching, I'm in the vintage world. So I see vintage F1 stuff more than I see modern F1 stuff. And the
And by the
vintage
way,
F1 stuff is,
could be great. Yes, I
oh my
agree.
God, no. I mean, I've seen amazing results out of vintage F1 Fangio. And I mean, remember, I know nothing about F1. I've never even watched Drive to Survive. So I mean, I Nuvolari, Fangio, like I mean, I even have followed cricket cards before. So I've stepped outside of the boundaries of just,
I
soccer
was
and all
I
that.
was talking more about modern
Yeah.
F1. I think that's also
Yeah.
important to say.
So what I will say is what we're seeing here with Las Vegas getting a race. And I used to live in Vegas, and a lot of my friends out there are saying that that weekend could potentially be the most expensive money-making weekend in the history of the city of Las Vegas.
Oh, really?
So from someone who doesn't know much about the sport, I've watched 30 seconds of a race because my friends forced me to, because all my friends are into this, and more of my friends keep talking about it. So I'm seeing it within people that are close to me, like, hey, have you ever watched Drive to Survive? And I'm like, here we go with this conversation again. Even I'm on my honeymoon and people are wearing, Hamilton hats and stuff. And I just tell people I like Verstappen, and then they get mad at me, and then they don't ask me about it anymore. So anyone brings up F1, I just say I like Verstappen. But um but I will say with them adding races in America with the Vegas race, that's going to be huge. That is, and like I said, not a fan of the sport, don't follow it, but just from what I'm hearing of people socially talking about it, the Miami race, you had every influencer, Instagram people, musician, DJ. It was like a Hollywood event of all the people that were there. So they're glamorizing all these F1 races in America as like the cool thing and the celebrity thing, because that isn't the one in Monaco, the Grand Prix, like the big one where all like the celebrities and stuff
Yeah.
go. Now, you have, the one in Vegas, Miami, Austin. They're going to keep adding more and more races around the country, and it's only going to grow here. And I can't deny it. I can't, I can't sit here and say, and I appreciate that, because it's cool to see more sports outside of the football, baseball, basketball, and baseball's on the decline here. More and more people are kind of falling out of love with baseball. It's an older demographic now. So,
okay.
And I do notice, like you mentioned earlier, more people putting their kids into soccer. That is definitely something, that I've noticed here. But as far as F1, I mean, I don't see it being just overhyped right now in America. There really is a lot of hype from that show. And I mean, can soccer provide something like that? I don't know. I don't know if they can hit a level like that.
But that's another thing about F1 is, of course, F1 is a sport, but it's really a sport if you think about just for this. I love soccer because I watched soccer, of course, and I also played soccer with my friends. I still play soccer with my friends. I know, at least I have the idea you also love basketball. You probably played basketball with your friends.
Got a LeBron jersey there, yeah.
Exactly. But for example, people that love F1 love because of I'm not talking about the show, I'm talking about the experience of watching F1 races. Not that they have, I would say, a connection with the sport, if that makes sense, like you have with basketball or with soccer. I don't know. I don't see people talking about this type of stuff. But look, if F1 grows, I think soccer will also follow the same logic. At the end of the day, both are still very new markets if you compare with baseball, basketball, etc.
So what I will say to that, and how I'll actually disagree with that, because the emotional connection is there because of the show. So I've never watched the show, but two of my really close friends are absolutely obsessed and love it. And the reason is when they watch that Drive to Survive show, that creates an emotional connection. You're like in the drama. You're like, you see what they go through off the track, and
it's a really good show.
In the mental. So you're kind of emotionally connected to them as like a character. It's kind of like, I want to say character, but in a way, because they're kind of a character on a show, but it's still something that's continuously going on. It's like a emotional connection to a documentary character in a way, right? So like, people
Exactly.
have their teams and their drivers. So I do think that there is an emotional connection to these drivers that they have, and they love their, the Mercedes team, the Red Bull team. Like they have their, their loyalties and their, they have their emotional connection to it. So from what I see from people, there is a very deep emotional connection too, because of the show. So
No,
I will say I've given more credit than that. So
no, and you actually are correct on that. Maybe I explained myself better. What I meant to say, or at least what I really want to say right now, is that it's a bit different if you make a connection 6 months ago versus me that have been knowing Ronaldinho for 20 years. I understand all the connections, nostalgia are valid, but if I had to believe more in the market, I would believe more in the market that things that you saw when you are a child, etc., that are much powerful. At least
nostalgia, power of nostalgia.
Look at Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon is a very good example. The guys at the 25s, 30s are basically remembering what they ended up collecting 20 years ago. So I think that's powerful. I also think nostalgia can be a little bit overrated, because at the end of the day, history for me beats nostalgia. A good example going into the conversation is Miyaza. Yes, I never saw Miyaza play, but the history of the importance of Miyaza in the game for the Italian history of football is huge. I mean, you cannot also put that aside. So nostalgia and history are two different things, but I think both are powerful. And I'm not saying F1 does not have that. Of course, there is something, but I just think soccer is much ahead. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, people find nostalgia in everything. I grew up collecting Garbage Pail Kids growing up, and now, you still have people collecting Garbage Pail Kids to the day, and chrome sapphire Garbage Pail Kids. I never would have imagined that when I was trading them as a young kid, So, I mean, there's nostalgia in everything. And, I think the one thing about F1 is it's just like new, right? To a lot of people. And I think people love having something new and exciting to watch and be passionate for. And when they watch the show and then they're looking forward to the next season of it. I think it's 5 seasons already. Like I said, not an F1 guy. I have 0 F1 cards. I have 0 desire to ever collect F1, but I will give it the credit it deserves. And
no, for sure.
I think that I would say it's too soon to say that it's in a bubble or overhyped. I think we need to at least give it a few more years before we assume something like that. And from what I'm seeing from the vintage F1 market, people really believe in it. That's as far as I can see.
Again, vintage, that was not even my comment was not about vintage, because probably is a great market. But the ultra modern market, because I have a friend that interacts a little bit on F1, and at least the information I had is they are quite down if you compare 6 months ago. But to be fair, people can say, look, soccer is the same, and is soccer also in a bubble? So this conversation can get a little bit tricky, even for us as a soccer collectors. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this one. I have to say, I end up learning a lot of stuff. I think your perspective is very interesting. I hope my viewers also enjoy. My audience is more into pre-modern, but to be fair, there is a lot of people also into vintage, and with that, pre-war is one step away. If you have any final thoughts, I would love to hear them now.
Yeah. I always say this, and I always tell this to people who just, are jump on the Discord and send me a DM, and they're like, yeah, what are you like? What are you looking at? What do you like? And I say, just go your own path. Like, don't, if you find something interesting, just go with it. Like I was probably the only person going on buying these little Italian cards of guys that nobody's ever heard of. And I absolutely love it. Like I do it for fun. I do it because I love it. Is there a little investing here and there? Sure. I'm not going to lie. Like, if I'm going to put down $1,000, $2,000, I think the most I've ever spent on a card is $2,000. So I've never dumped, 10, 5, 10 grand on anything before, but do your own path.
Is a lot of money.
Yeah. do your own path. And if you would have told me 2 years ago I would have spent $2,000 on a card, I would have told you you're crazy, because I like to find the value. I like to put in the grind and I put in the work. And I think that if people do that and they put in that work, you'll be rewarded. It might take a while. It might be a year from now or 2 years, but put in the work, grind it out, and just enjoy it. Talk to people, build relationships. I talk to Seb. I think I talk to Seb just as much as I talk to my family nowadays. We're always talking like all day long, sending each other stuff. And, he's an amazing dude. And I've met, Bill, Al, they've been amazing to me from the start of everything and help guide me, and, find the people that will, guide you the right way. And,
Sure.
even what they say, take your own, go with your gut and do what you want to do. Don't listen to what everyone tells you what to do, so.
No, I agree. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, with my viewers, and we need to do it again. I mean, not sure when,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
we need to do it again. And yeah, again, thank you so much for accepting the invite. I thought the conversation was great, and yeah, see you guys next time.
Anybody ever have any questions, shoot me a DM. I'll help you out as much as I can.
And check his Instagram.